Solicitor Mark Thompson, Harbor Historical Commission Chairman Paul Agassi, and Township Manager Joan McGraw, Assistant Township Manager Jeff Eastburn, Secretary Sharon Wise. And there are approximately 5 members of the public here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There will be an executive session after the meeting to discuss the personnel issues. Also, the following items will be removed from tonight's agenda. Item 5A, library discussion, they'll come back in December or January. Item 5H, discussion on multiple uses for the light industrial. We have a, pardon?
You can tell them why that was, just tell them it was settled.
Oh, that was settled. There was a zoning hearing board meeting that settled that issue. So there was no reason to consider changing the zoning. Okay, we have an abbreviated board tonight. We only have 2 board members, so we don't have a quorum. So we're only going to be able to manage items that don't require a vote. So hopefully we pick up another supervisor, maybe by 8 or 8:30, and see if we can complete some of these items. But some of the items will be deleted from the agenda. And let me get this first item in there, and I'll talk about which ones come off. Public comment. Public comment is for anything related to tonight's agenda. Public comment is for, the last public comment is for items not on tonight's agenda. It's important you state your name clearly for the tape so comments can be reflected correctly. Please state whether you're a township taxpayer or resident. So we have comments on items on the agenda. We'll take those now. Anything either on the agenda or not on the agenda, we'll take them at the end of the meeting. Hearing none.
I just have a question. Is Jason Ebro talking tonight or no?
I have no idea.
That's not on the agenda?
He's supposed to be here.
Okay,
I have no idea.
thank you.
Okay, we cannot approve the treasurer's report.
Or do disposition of records.
We can't do disposition of records.
No.
You have to go to zoning officer's report.
Yeah, that's
Zoning officer's report, so that's the first thing we're allowed to do without a quorum. Don, you want to do that one?
So how do we do that?
I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, oh, I got it, now I have it. So the October zoning officer's report, there were 5 permits that were issued. There were 24 building inspections. There were building fees collected of $2,751.06. The recreation open space impact fees collected was 0 this month, that month of October, and the miscellaneous fees collected were $1,285. There's one ongoing zoning issue reported, and I'll turn to Joan to give us an update on that.
Well, that's the historic house at 3327 Appleton Road, and we have a court hearing scheduled for tomorrow with the district court judge to follow up with the notices of violation.
Yeah, it's a continued hearing. This was for violations that were filed several months ago. The judge did not want to make a decision on it, given the fact that Judge Schenken, the Court of Common Pleas, had not made a decision. We wanted to wait for that decision, which came down last month in the township's favor. So we've resumed our hearings on the violations.
And you just update, just like you did our staff meeting, there is some progress with the house, so some work's being done.
Yes, he has done repaired the stone foundation in the back of the house and did the pointing for that. He's, they've been doing some work inside. We've seen them carry some things out. Jeff Vogels said that they still need to do some brick pointing, but the stone foundation looks nice, what they've done. They've definitely improved that.
So he's got to prove that the roof is sound. That's the only
Yes.
thing we can control on the inside.
that there's no water damage.
That the place is weather tight. And that he wants to point the bricks in the front and replace the front porch.
Yes.
Keep our fingers crossed that he makes more progress. I know all your group has been very
I
I can
wouldn't,
see them working on the
Yeah.
stone foundation.
I wouldn't be very hopeful
Yeah.
based on past performance.
But one steps at a time. But good luck tomorrow in court.
But it appears he feels a little more urgency than he used to.
Okay, going on, November 7th, Planning Commission report was canceled, meeting was canceled, there's no report. Harbor Historical Commission did not meet in November, however, Chairman Paul Agassi may have something to report.
I'm suggesting my mouth shut, Mr. Chair.
that's all very interesting.
Yeah, I do have one minor note that I would simply like to bring to the board's attention. We did have a joint talk sponsored with the New London Area Historical Society. It was entitled The Story of Humanity. It was by Moshe Becker, who's the emeritus professor of anthropology at Westchester University. And we had a sizable turnout for our talks. We typically get 25 to 30, and we had somewhere between 50 and 60, just judging on the number of chairs that we filled, but didn't actually. And in all honesty, I will say that maybe the style of the talk slowly started, but interesting as we moved along. And it was a nice evening. So, and in fact, Ken Woodward, who is the president of the Oxford Area Historical Association, was there basically to check out our speaker to see if he would be interested. Ask him, and I think he will. We do a little coaching on each other's speakers because we don't have a lot of meeting attendance. And I have just one quick question. I was just wondering if we heard anything back from PennDOT concerning the finalization of how the intersection might look.
No.
I just,
Don't hold your breath.
I understand they move in mysterious ways, but I was just, kind of interested to see what changes to the plans have resulted from our conversations, out there.
Just to put it in perspective, they're supposed to finish this work in 2017.
Yeah, I understand. I know we're looking at 2021.
Okay, let's see. Jim German usually provides the FSA report, but he's ill this evening on the weekly report for the Franklin Sportsmen's Association for November 20th, 2019. The Franklin Sportsmen's Association, FSA, provides this update to inform Board of Supervisors about events, activities, and deer harvest information that have taken place during the 2019 hunting season. Member of the FSA Board shall report monthly September to February in each of the hunting season as required by resolution. Jim normally does that, but he's ill. The membership currently is 35 members are in the association. On September 7th and 8th, the annual proficiency shoot was held for members. 23 members successfully have taken their archery proficiency test. 21 members have successfully taken the shotgun proficiency test, and some members still need to perform their testing before they can hunt. Requirement for the test, just for the information, requirement for hunt for bow is that you need to put 3 of 5 arrows in a pie plate at 15 yards, which is pretty easy for most archers. For the shotgun, you need to put 3 of 5 shots in a pie plate at 50 yards. Also pretty easy. Anybody who couldn't do that should not. Usually, most of the guys go up there, and it's usually 1, 2, 3. Very rarely does anybody miss. Parcels, Bamshire, Franklin, and Goodwin White Clay are the parcels they hunt. Signs have been updated with new maps and hunting dates. Setback boundaries have been marked as needed. Harvest report. 2 harvested as of 10/15. 1 buck in Franklin, 1 doe in White Clay Crescent. unchanged from last month, so we were successful since then. Community service, service projects by the membership this year, July 2019 till November. Road cleanup of Chesterville and Creek roads, that's this Sunday at November 24th. Handicap poles, parking lot, Crossing Park painted yellow and green. Girls Out picnic tables sanded and painted, Crossing Park. Planning to adopt a family for Christmas, $400 in gifts. There are a total of 147 and a half hours of service time. There's one note here,
There's not feeling there.
I'm not sure. Oh, it just says he's ill. Okay.
So do you want me to take the next one, John?
Let's see what the next.
So Sue Walker's here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So can we welcome Sue Walker coming to talk to us about your work. Thank you for coming. District Director, Representative Christy Holohan. She's going to update us on what's going on.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, John, for getting me on the agenda. And it's tricky working out timing of things. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sue Walker. I'm the District Director for Representative Christy Holohan. She is our new congressperson for Congressional District 6. And I know formerly, as a resident here, I know that formerly this used to be Representative Smucker's district prior to the congressional redistricting. So what we are doing, Chrissy has been in office since January 3rd. What we were doing is making a very concerted effort. Something she feels very strongly about is being accessible to all of her constituents. So to that end, in August, we started visiting every municipality, township, and borough in our Congressional 6th district, which I think there are either 73 or 76 of in Chester County and 20 some odd in Berks County, the southern portion which we hold. So we're gradually making our way around the new 6th district to introduce ourselves, explain where our offices are, what we do there, because some folks just don't know what a congressional office does. So in a way of being of service and being accessible to people, here we are, and we'll do it again in the springtime. So I'll be in touch with you then as well, Jerry. Our offices within the district, our new district is all of Chester County, the southern portion of Berks County, from essentially the city of Reading on down. We have 2 offices within the district. One is in Westchester, one is in City Hall in Reading. The office in Westchester is not the office that former Representative Costello held. We heard from a lot of folks that there were some issues with that office, first and foremost being parking. So it became a big issue of ours to find a location that was easy for people to get to that had parking. So we are just outside the borough of Westchester. We're still on Gay Street. The address is on these cards. We are conveniently, for me, because I like ice cream, right in the Dairy Queen. So if you folks are familiar with that area, that's where we are. We're right by AAA Travel as well, just to give you a few landmarks. Our office is open Monday through Friday. We're fully staffed 5 days a week. Both offices, we're there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 to 5. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're there 9 to 7, recognizing that not everyone works an average work day. We're there a little bit longer on those 2 days. If you have a need and you need to get in touch with us in person, we're happy to accommodate people's schedules and see what we can do, whether it's before hours or after hours. So please reach out and let us know if there's any. What we do in a district office, and again, awareness, not everyone knows what we do there. A lot of what we do is casework. So we advocate for constituents. If you're having an issue with Social Security benefits, with veteran benefits, if you're haggling with the IRS about something and you're just not making any headway, please reach out and let us know. If you have immigration needs that need to be met, please let us know. If your passport is stuck in some sort of bureaucratic stranglehold, let us know. We'll see what we can do to push that along and advocate on your behalf. So that's one piece of what we do. The other big piece of what we do is outreach. We're trying to make a very concerted effort to get in touch with all of our stakeholders across the community, whether they're business owners, educational outlets, our ag producers, which we have a number of course, within our congressional district, veterans, you name it. We're trying to get in touch with as many different groups as we can to be of assistance and draw people together. supervisors, what I would say to you is one of the big things that we do in our office as well is offer up letters of support for federal grants. So if there is a federal grant that you are pursuing or might be pursuing in the near future, or whatever, please reach out, let us know. If you can give us at least a 2-week lead time for a grant that you are authoring or pursuing, let us know and we will offer up a letter of support. We've only been at this since January, which doesn't seem like it was that long ago. We have had a good bit of measurable success with receiving grants. So we've helped the Brandywine Conservancy, we've helped one of the historic battlefields in our Chester County area. We've also helped a private company that's actually relocating their business from King of Prussia area out to Reading. They received a grant that's actually going to restore a brownfield site, clean it all up. They're going to move their business entirely out there, and it's a business that recycles plastics. So it should bring jobs to our community and also give environmental benefit. So the grants that we've helped, and also firefighters, we have local fire stations that reach out to us for grants. We've assisted with getting those grants anywhere from a few $1,000s to this company that's moving from King of Prussia. They were awarded a grant that's over $2.5 million. So there's no grant that's too large or too small. If we know about it, we're happy to help champion that cause if we can. So that's one thing that I think we can do for you. For those of you who aren't familiar with Representative Forhan, she is an Air Force veteran. She's been an entrepreneur, she's been an educator, she's worn a whole lot of hats and decided to get into the political foray, thinking that she could be of benefit and of service to our country at this time. So to that end, she serves on 3 different committees: House Armed Services, Foreign Affairs, and recognizing how integral small business partners are to our community. She actually received an exemption and is on the 3rd committee, which is atypical, and she's on Small Business Administration as well. That's kind of who she is. She's on a number of caucuses, probably too many at this point that I could mention, but one that I would note here in Franklin Township and in our neighboring areas. She's also on the agritourism caucus, recognizing that is definitely a conduit for future business and a way that our farming partners can create another pathway of revenue for their farms. So it's something that had a good amount of success in other areas of Chester County. There's no reason why we shouldn't take that all to the southern portion of Chester County as well. That's essentially on that front of things. As far as the accessibility portion, we're coming up on our 13th town hall. That will be this coming Friday, a week from, I'm sorry, lost track of my weeks. This is Wednesday already. This Friday, we'll have our 13th town hall. It will be in Coatesville at the Chester County Training Center. We always do our town halls based on themes. This particular theme will be bridging the skills gap, and it will be about workforce development, particularly within the trades and manufacturing. So we'll have a panel for the very first time for this particular town hall. We have a number of notable folks in it, including Pat Bakovitz, who is the Chester County Director of Workforce Development. We'll have a Senior Vice President of Chester County Economic Development Council there. We'll have a representative from Penn State, the Director of Chester County Intermediate Unit, George Fiore, will be there and to speak on technical high schools, and we'll also have a member of labor unions that will be there to talk about that. So it should be an interesting discussion. If you're interested on that, please contact the website and you can reach out to our office directly. But that will be our 13th town hall. We did have one in West Grove in June to discuss agriculture and the environment, and that was at the Technical High School, TCHS, which is a great facility. But thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes this evening. If there are any questions I can answer for you all, I'm happy to do so. Sure, go ahead.
You mentioned grants,
Yes.
and you specifically said federal grants.
Yes.
We are looking for some help with a local county grant, I think it's county grant, from the Chester County Conservation District.
Okay. Thank you.
For replacement of the Hess Mill Road Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a $350,000 project.
Okay.
They've indicated that they could provide us a grant, but lately they seem to be hedging. It's an extremely important part of infrastructure for Franklin Township. The bridge has been declared in poor condition for the last 7 years. It's a wooden bridge built in 1977, I think.
Is
So
any
it's
of it
going to
financed by
require
the state?
pardon?
Is any of it financed by the state, or is it purely a county project?
I think it's Chester County Conservation District, so I think it's all county. Is it state?
We'll be obtaining the money
The
from the state.
DEP, okay, oh, it's state.
And
No,
The dirt and gravel road program.
well, the Chester County Conservation District is the enforcement arm for the PA DEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So that's state.
we can offer up letters of support for state entities. Ethics prevents us from putting it on our letterhead, but we can sign off on it.
Okay, we'll get you some information, and if there's anything you can
Typically doesn't
do.
carry as much weight as a federal one, but I'm all about roads and bridges.
Political leverage helps.
You know, whatever we can do to help, we're happy.
Yeah, this was really important to the township, because we had hoped to do this last year, and then bridge, we're gonna do it on our own, with our own financing.
Mhm.
But then I had the conservation group come out there, and they measured the bridge, it's 25 feet wide, and they indicated that if we increased it to 32 feet, it would provide nearly a full grant for the replacement, so
Okay.
we certainly would widen it, and that's our plan. They said money would be available this year, but lately they've been hedging, so.
Yeah.
Just,
If you can forward the information.
we'll get you some
to us,
information,
that would
okay?
be fantastic, and then
Okay,
whatever
great.
we can do to help.
Oh, thank you. Just put it here.
So I have another question for you.
Sure.
You, since you're making your way around,
Yeah.
how many events of progress? How many folks have you come to see? How many?
You are among the last.
Oh, so you've gone around. That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Last week I was in Highland Township. They were difficult to get a hold of because they really don't have an office staff. So it's just hard to get contact with them. And some of what we're doing is just, you know, the clerical stuff of just making sure that our contact information is correct. Again, just because we're taking 3 different congressional districts, merging them into one, so it's not like we're inheriting, oh, here it is.
Right.
You know, we're having to create new systems.
But you've
So-
gone around everybody. That's fantastic.
Berks
Congratulations.
Berks County is done. I think that there are, I want to say 6, it might be less than that, because I was in Avondale earlier this week, was it yesterday? I'm not sure, I lose track of days. We were in Avondale, and they were one of the last holdouts. Kennett Borough is another one that's on my list. And Ackland, unfortunately, had to be rescheduled twice. So we're not going to get to Ackland until December. So, but we'll get there.
And is this just you doing this?
No, it's our staff. We have a
Okay,
small
you're all
staff.
Okay.
It's small but mighty. When we started this, there were 4 of us doing it, and now we'll have 6 people. And so we'll do it again in the springtime, just to let people know, kind of give more of a congressional update as to what legislation is moving through, what's not moving through. The website's a great source of information for that. I know there's been a lot of questions in our area, specifically about USMCA. I know Representative Houlihan has had a number of conversations with Mr. Lighthizer from President Trump's administration about what the sticking points are there, and that seems to stem around prescription drug pricing, which is something that she feels very strongly about and campaigned on, of trying to bring about more reasonable prescription drug pricing. And the administration unfortunately does not want to seem to move off of that. So that it has been a sticking point as far as she's concerned to fully come on board with USMCA, and hopes to get there. She's still hopeful that a compromise can be struck. But yeah, that has been one thing that she's been working on for sure. In addition to continuing to secure jobs in our area, she's been very vocal. And I was just with her, I think it was 2 weeks ago, at the Sikorsky facility in Clarksville, talking about how they're hoping to continue their business at that particular facility, and how they're hoping to create other venues for more people who want to buy helicopters. So we would like to keep them in our congressional district as well. Their business is super important to us. Yeah.
Okay.
All good?
Thank you.
Questions from the public? This is your chance.
Just out of curiosity,
Sure.
obviously not during the legislative session, but during recesses, does she actually meet with people?
Oh, yeah. We don't stop moving, and that's one of the reasons why I can't remember what day of the week it is.
So is it possible to actually make an appointment sort of thing, or?
Right, we can do that on our website.
Okay.
The congressional schedule is typically, not all months, but typically it's 3 weeks in Washington DC, 1 week in the district. Some folks get frustrated by meeting with a staff member, but truly, we are very well dialed in to what's happening, and then if it needs to be elevated, then we can
But
elevate.
I'm only just curious, I mean, I know we're going relatively soon into the winter recess, so it's usually a longer period of not in DC, so.
We haven't had much of a real recess because she was sworn in during a government shutdown, so that recess was completely eliminated. However, it didn't stop us from having 2 town halls the first week that she was in office. We did both of them in one day in 2 different counties. So when I tell you we have not stopped moving, we have not stopped moving. So if there's anything we can do to be of assistance, please reach out and let us know. Okay.
I thought I'd give you, you had a little initial, I think, with your email.
Mhm.
I had sent a email to regarding the Kurds about a month or so ago,
Okay,
and I got no reply,
okay,
which didn't really surprise me or anything. I've been in politics for a long, long time, including in DC, so I'm familiar with a lot of this. On Monday, I sent her another email regarding a rather esoteric meeting under property right, or intellectual property rights, that was occurring on Tuesday. And about 3 hours later, I get a reply, I got the standard reply that, we received your email. And about 3 hours after that, out pops an email with, her long written explanation about the Kurdish situation
okay,
about a month later, after I originally sent the first one. And of course, I've never heard anything back on the second email at all.
okay.
So I just thought I'd let you know that there's something going on there.
It could be that the legislative correspondence staff is just really bogged down.
Yeah,
We've received,
that's
I
what
can't
I
even tell you, tens of thousands of emails, and that's not an excuse, but just to kind of give you a little bit of background on it.
Right.
There's just been a lot, and we're happy to communicate with every single person who communicates with us.
All right.
So the bog down or the slow down might be because of that. So I apologize for
I'm not
the lag
surprised.
time.
I just thought I'd give you just.
No, I appreciate hearing the feedback. I appreciate hearing it. It's been exceptionally busy. I can tell you within the district for the casework that we've done since January, we have opened and closed close to 800 cases for people. But to that effect, we've also returned almost $1.3 million to our constituents in the form of IRS claims, veteran benefits, Social Security claims that have been lodged in. So I apologize, it took a month to get a response, but
Right.
it's been an
Well,
exceptional
what
time.
surprised me about it is it's regarding the Kurdish issue, it's just that you're going to get a canned response that no doubt there's millions of people writing it. And I kind of expected something, the canned response back a lot quicker because it's one of those things, somebody reads it, I'll send this letter, you go down there, I'll send that letter, you go down to the third one, I'll send this one over here. So it was kind of interesting that I got it about a month later, after I sent in the second.
There's been
second
a lot of
item, so.
issues, so again, my apologies that it took you.
Yeah, it's no big deal, I just thought I'd give you some shoes on.
I appreciate that, and it's, as you well know, it's impossible, it's an evolving issue, so I'm just trying to keep working. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
We're at a stopping point, so you can keep going.
That's okay.
All right, very
We'll
good.
talk all day long.
No,
So,
thank you for coming.
Thank you
Thanks so
for coming
much.
out.
We'll be back again in the springtime. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we're at a stopping point right
So no
now.
Jason?
So, we could recess the meeting for half an hour, or whatever you want to do.
What about you're going to do
To zoning update, the zoning assessment.
Well, the zoning update was primarily for the supervisors, but I guess you want to talk about it, we could.
It's up to you.
Okay, let me find the right papers here.
We're doing our best to keep things moving.
Let me find the right.
Do we know where Jason is, or we just assume?
I was just
Don,
not
he told me you'd be here.
Sorry.
I just know there's some folks here that,
Well, he's not here, so I
Here,
don't know what
right.
else to do about it.
yeah, no.
Okay. Okay, a little bit of background on zoning. We've been looking at our zoning for quite a while. We started this thing early last year, and we did have some zoning issues related to high-density housing. And we eventually engaged the Chester County Planning Commission to assess our suitability and our compliance to a fair share analysis for high-density housing. And this analysis has to be done by a certified planner, a CP, I think, anyway. And they have those credentials. And they did that for us at a fairly low price. What do we pay for that?
Well, we haven't paid yet. It's going to be about $1,400.
$1,400, which was quite a bit of work for this consulting work. But essentially, they came back to us with a report that said that we are in compliance with our current fair share zoning, which I didn't think we would be, so I was quite surprised that we were. So we really don't need to do any more there. There's still some work to be done with one of the other districts, SU. The light industrial was solved yesterday, or I guess the day before, by the zoning hearing board.
Next time.
Was it last night?
Yes.
So the next step is to see if we can resolve this SU issue, and then ask the Chester County Planning Commission to assist us in producing a new revised comprehensive plan. Talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan and what it is. The comprehensive plan is a fairly involved document, but it is not law. It's not enforceable by law. It's really a statement of policy by the Board of Supervisors. The real law is the zoning. And the zoning consists of, I'll just show you a quick example. We have lots of these if you want to see them, but this is the basis for zoning law. It's a zoning map. And you can see there's colored areas with various designations. I think there's 11 different zoning districts. And every parcel in the township is defined on that map. So you can look at this map and find the parcel that you live on and find out what zoning district you're in. There's some written documents that complement that. Each one of these districts has about a 5-page document which defines what is permitted in that zoning area and all the conditions that permit it. Those documents in this map are the zoning law. That is enforceable by law, and that's what we need to correct some issues that we have from problems in the past. The comprehensive plan really provides a general explanation of what the zoning is about, but it's not necessary. This thing is enforceable by law by itself. So the current comprehensive plan was done in 2006. Typically, they're done every 10 years, and the 10-year period is related to the census. The census is taken every 10 years, but it's not mandatory. We didn't do it 2 years ago because we were involved with some zoning disputes with Gourmet Mushroom and some others, so it really wasn't possible to do an updated plan. So the plan is to resolve one more zoning issue and then start a review of the comprehensive plan. I think it will essentially, you look at the current comprehensive plan, most of the words in there are appropriate for what people want. The maps and charts are all out of date, so they all need to be updated. I'm not looking at it as a major effort, but there will be public involved, there will be a committee where public get involved in this thing. So probably that'll start sometime next year. There is one thing that I wanted to talk to the supervisors about, and it's one determination that the Chester County Planning Commission made that I don't agree with, and we're gonna talk to them about that. And find the right spot. Got a lot of stuff on it here.
It's on this, it's on the
Which
path,
page is it?
it's a path of growth and development.
Here it is. There's a determination that they make related to the fair share obligations for Franklin Township. And it's related to the path of growth and development pressure. And they say, considering its location, development history, and growth patterns, Franklin Township is located in the path of growth. Although Franklin Township has remained a relatively rural community over the past several decades, its proximity to Wilmington and Newark, as well as developing communities in Chester County, such as Kennett Square and Oxford boroughs, have increased the pressure for residential development in the township. Routes 841 and 896 through the township provide transportation connections to growing regional, commercial, and planning centers. I disagree with this determination. Our adjoining township, London Britton Township, just did their comprehensive plan. And they determined that they are not in the path of growth. And we're very similar to that. In fact, we have less commercial development in our township than they have. We have the same commercial corridor that comes up here. So I want to advise the board, if they agree, that's what we're going to do tonight, to advise the Chester County Planning Commission that we're not in the path of growth, and we want to get this corrected. We want to get it corrected soon. If you look at our community, you look at Franklin and London Britton, you say, why are they not developed? There's a good reason for that. If you look at the map of Chester County, and you look at the lower townships, which is Franklin and London Britton, there's very little development in things. They're almost all rural. According to there's a map in the executive summary of the Landscapes 3 plan for Chester County, and we show almost all rural. So why is that? Because we have this enormous economic entity south of us in Newark, Elkton, and up the Kirkwood Highway. Secondly, there's a tax structure that completely inhibits commercial development in Franklin Township and London Britton. If you notice, there isn't very much. And what you see in Franklin and London Britton, you see essentially food service businesses and auto repair businesses. So why? One of the key issues that limit it is the difference in the tax structure between Delaware and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a 6% sales tax, Delaware has no sales tax. So if you could imagine some commercial retail business trying to locate themselves up here and make money, charging 6% sales tax on an item that somebody can drive down the road and 8 miles and buy for no tax. That's what happens. We also have a significant number of people that live in both Franklin and London Britton that work in Delaware. So they're down there during the day, they do buy their gas down there, they buy all their shopping down there. So you're just not going to get any commercial development. The one misnomer when you see it is you look at how do auto repair stations survive because they charge 6% sales tax. Well, Pennsylvania has a vehicle inspection requirement. You have to have your vehicle inspected every year by a certified Pennsylvania repair shop. That's why they're here. If that wasn't a requirement, they'd be down there too. So those, that tax structure completely inhibits what we do here. A little bit of history, when you go back and look at all the projections that the Chester County Planning Commission has made related to Franklin and London Britton regarding growth and population growth and housing growth, we've never come close to those projections ever. So they always overproject. And I think that's where they are right now.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that's what's kept us so rural, being so close to that major economic center south of us. There's another tax structure element that controls the townships, and that is the earned income tax. Most of the townships, except London Britton, have an earned income tax. Franklin Township has a 0.5% earned income tax. Delaware's got a very strong income tax, probably around 7% and 8%. Anybody who's making a decent salary is up in that range. So people that live up here, that work in Delaware, pay the Delaware tax and are exempt from the EIT. So Franklin does not get the EIT income that you would expect because so many people are exempt. It's even more severe in London, Britain, because they have a much larger percentage of people that work in Delaware, to the point that they don't even have an EIT because the returns would be at no significant return. So they don't have an EIT, but they got a very high millage rate on their real estate tax. Those two tax issues related to the two states and our townships significantly control the development of our townships. So just a point of interest for people who are here. I think, I don't know if there's anything else. The one thing that I wanted to get out of the board tonight, and we're not going to get that, is the agreement to write a letter back to Chester County Planning Commission to take us out of the path of development. It's part of the fair share analysis. It's a determination you need to make as a first step in the fair share analysis. And even with the fact that we're in that, we don't need to do anything with our high density, but I don't believe we're in it. I'd like to correct it.
Well, they're going to, you and I had talked about this a little while ago, since I'm well aware of fair share and all of that. We were talking about the TND, when they did the fair share, did they take that into account?
I'm sorry. The TND.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Discussed.
we lost the TND.
Well, you still have it in your zoning, but.
It's gonna have to change. It's gonna,
Did the fair share analysis take that into account?
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
That was
The
our
other-
big fear.
The other thing that made me believe, there's two things that made me believe we might not be compliant, is we lost that TND, which was a high-density housing. It was 126 acres with, like, 350 houses or 400 houses proposed in that. And now it's a winery, a sheep farm, and a Black Angus operation, so we couldn't be happier with that. The other one was Crossing Park is preserved land, and somebody had classified that as high density, which is a no-no. So we lost that also, but the fact that we lost those two, we're still compliant, fortunately.
The nice thing about a high-density house, you don't need a whole lot of area to put the number of houses in. That's about the only good thing about it. So I think they said we need like 400 houses, but you don't need much space to do that. So even though we have limited space, it was enough to check the box.
Not down apartments or townhouses.
The one thing that limits it, and we've got a little time to talk here, so I'll just keep.
Yeah, we would normally be taking all this time.
But you can put out more information. One thing that inhibits high-density housing is that you can't use on-lot sewage and wells as most of us have. So the high-density has to have its own sewer plant. And typically they need water service. Now there is water service in various parts of the township. Aqua distributes some water around here. So it's possible somebody could get water service, probably not too hard. But the waste treatment, sanitary waste treatment is a huge problem and a huge economic limit to anybody coming in here with a high-density housing. We have one right now. The name of that development is Lexington Point. It's proposed to put 38 houses in on small lots. They're less than 0.3 of an acre. And that plan was approved in 2007. And to date, they've only built 6 houses. And they only have, and they do not have a sewage treatment facility. All they do have is a holding tank, which they have to pump out 3 times a week. They've been doing that since 2010, 11?
I believe so.
The first house was built in 2010.
Yeah.
And the only reason they haven't gone any further is that the plan doesn't allow them to build any more than 6 houses until they get an operating system. Developer so far has not been able to put in a system that works.
How does the apartment building at the end of Gypsy Hill, how does the apartment complex at the end of Gypsy Hill Road handle that? Just curious to know.
Mike, I don't know exactly, but I believe they have a community system that probably you could never get approved today, probably a large, each one of those units probably has a single primary treatment tank and a large field, there's percolation field. You could put, in today's world, the DEP would never approve a system like that. You need denitrification and other processing.
Yeah, drive by every day, never thought about it.
They are high density, they are classified as.
I mean, I don't know if folks realize this, but it's not like it's our idea to do, we're required by law to have the ability to have high-density housing, have the agriculture, have the what's the issue, this
Special use.
special use. So we have to allow by law every use possible in our township. And so it's not us cooking up these ideas, it's what we're forced to do, and then try to do it in a way that works with what the residents want.
Well, if I remember right, I thought the determination for being in the path of both was a legal problem, a legal thing. In other words, the court made a decision on that. There might be law in that.
You could be challenged, and anything you do could be challenged, is that correct?
Yeah, it would be a factual determination, ultimately made by either the zoning hearing board or the board of supervisors should a challenge ever arise. Reading this, they really didn't add that much information to their determination, other than to say that
it
Franklin
is,
was
yeah.
close to Delaware, and there were a couple big roads that traveled through the township. So, I mean, it's not a good thing to have it in there, but because it is, if you're not on the path of growth, then you don't need to.
You don't need as much,
your
yeah.
fair share. So that's kind of the initial determination of
Right,
the test.
my point is I thought we were kind of under the gun to have to deal with it when we did the comp plan and all the rest 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Well, given the
I
fact
don't
that,
remember all the history, I don't want to.
well, it was given the fact that TND never actually matriculated into a TND and it became preserved farmland, there was a concern that that high-density allotment having been taken away should be analyzed as to whether or not
Right,
Franklin Township has an issue.
I understand that, I mean, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the determination to be in the path of growth, I thought had been taken 15, 20 years ago, and was something that was like legal in stone.
I don't think so.
It's not something that you would know about necessarily, or even.
Eric, all I can say is that this is a current determination by the Chester County Planning Commission, who has got tremendous credibility in the area.
I'm not gonna argue if you wanna fight it. Go get my signature on it if you want.
You'd be happy, right?
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that the Lexington Point development was an outgrowth of a challenge to Franklin Township's fair share 15 years ago. So I don't think that, and that was a settlement of that challenge. So, to the extent there was a determination, it wasn't a final determination that would be binding on the township. And certainly circumstances changed concerning where developments would be proposed over a period
That's
of
something
time.
to look
So,
into.
Yeah, that was done, the legal term for that challenge was a curative amendment.
Curative amendment, right.
Which is essentially a challenge to your zoning, saying your zoning does not provide zoning for the thing that particular person wants to do.
Right.
Pennsylvania law says that all townships must accommodate, quote, all uses. It means everything. It's an absurd requirement for a township to have to provide all those uses, but it's law. So the zoning, our zoning map does provide all uses, and the SU district is the one that essentially allows all. That's the one that wouldn't say anything goes, because there are some limits in it, but that's the area where you put your other things that you would want. There's one line in there that says anything else, I don't know how it's exactly stated, but essentially
any
it
other
allows
use that's not accommodated.
any other use that's not accommodated is permitted, so. But what we could do, and I don't think we have to now, one of the plans was, If you could not accommodate high density or one of these zoning districts, there's a technique called
It's like a sherry.
I've lost the term
A
right now.
multi-municipal
A
comprehensive.
multi-municipal comprehensive plan. And that is where you partner with an adjacent township to share zoning. And I had already inquired with London Grove Township, which is a much more populated township. They're getting ready to redo their comprehensive plan, and they're considering a multi-municipal plan that includes their township plus West Grove and Avondale. So if we were to partner with them, then that might provide enough high density for us if we're short. It doesn't look like we have to do that. Typically, you want to give them something, so they might want something that we have. And there are a number of these around here. There's one out in Oxford that is about maybe 5 or 6 townships involved.
Yeah, we represent several townships in what's called the Phoenixville Regional Comprehensive Plan that I know of, and that's 5 separate townships in Aurora.
Yeah, but there's one out in Oxford that's studied. And that's the one that Chester County Planning Commission initially directed us to, but then I made some inquiries and talked to London Grove Township, and they're interested. That probably won't be required now if we've satisfied the high density. So that was a big change for us, or a big relief. So that's what I wanted to do with the board tonight, and at least now everybody's here got some overview. We had a fairly long discussion about this back in April, May or something, one of the board meetings, right after we met with the Planning Commission up in Westchester. So, anyway,
While you're talking about-
any questions on this?
Yeah, while you're talking about zoning, so what zoning issue are we trying to solve for? You said there's a zoning.
SU. I don't want to get too involved in it.
When will we get involved in it?
Pardon?
When will we get involved in it? I'm okay with if it's not tonight, but.
We need possibly to do some rezoning. So I can tell you that if you want to fill this room with people, just tell them you're going to rezone some land. So I think we need to have a reasonable plan, some options, before you open the whole thing up. That's really right. Now, we're not trying to hurt anybody, but I can tell you, if you come in here and say you're going to rezone somebody's property, SU, they're not going to be happy.
So we may not, but there are some.
Or the
options.
neighbors around them may not be happy, or the whole township may not be happy. So, like I said, this is probably one of the more difficult things for the township government to do, is to manage zoning.
How will we find out when that starts, the SU talk? Although SU sounds very
Well-
close to something else.
Kathleen, right now, we're not under any pressure.
Okay.
We don't have some developer beating down my neck, or beating down the township's neck, looking for some zoning relief. So we're gonna get into it early next year. But by the end of the year, I would expect we will have a comprehensive plan and all this resolved.
I don't mind about the comprehensive plan, I got it, thank you.
The zoning's,
It's the zoning and our property right next to the golf course, right, that I'm just on high alert for any kind of rezoning.
Right.
The comprehensive plan, I thought you did a great, thank you for describing that. I see that that is not a requirement.
it's an important document in that it makes your zoning make sense.
Yeah, I get
Rather
it.
than just this document
The
and
story.
then all these pages. It
That's a
gives you
vision.
some overview
Yeah,
of the thought process behind the document. But it's like I said, it's not law, it's a
But just so you
statement.
know, I'm gonna help spread that message, because I hear about, well, there's no comp plan, and to me, if it's not a regulation, I get it, we'll do it, right, that makes sense.
It's not an unimportant document by any means.
I get it.
don't wanna minimize it, but it doesn't carry the force of law.
Right,
Um,
I'm just alert to when does the rezoning discussion
There's
start,
one-
and
there's
what
one
does that
method-
look like?
There's one mechanism that the township can use to protect itself for a short period of time if we were challenged. Say we had and that won't happen now because we're okay on high density, but say we got a challenge on high density. And if somebody came in here and said, you don't have enough. And they could challenge us in with what we call a curative amendment, which is how Lexington Point get in. And if they're successful in the challenge, then you have to provide it to them. And Lexington Point, actually the guy that actually was successful wasn't Lexington Point, it was some other developer who eventually sold it to Keystone Custom Homes, it was Lexington Point. But there is a way of protecting yourself. It's called a municipal curative amendment, where the township can declare this municipal curative amendment, which gives the township protection from a developer for 6 months. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in that 6-month period, that would give you an opportunity to get your zoning
Figure it out.
in order. So you have that tool if you have to use it. But right now, we're just not feeling any pressure. If you look at housing growth in Franklin Township, it just isn't there. The housing market essentially collapsed in 2007 when the subprime mortgage market went away. We did have a number of what I call abandoned projects, which were housing developments that developers had approved plans for, but never executed those plans because the market just fell out. So in 2015, 16, somewhere in there, it was fashionable for developers to look for these abandoned projects. And we had a number of them, and they were developed. Probably Windermere is probably the one. That was to be a bigger development, had more homes than the guy actually built. But the advantage for the developer was that he had an approved plan, and all the stormwater stuff was done, and and they were able to buy them cheaply enough to make to do that development. That kind of skewed our growth a little bit because there was 2 of those projects. Just to put a number on it, for the last 13 years, our housing growth has been 0.6%, pretty low. We did have 2014 and 15, we had 34 houses built in that 2-year period, and that was mostly Windermere. So if you take that out of the picture, isn't much. So anyone wants a copy of this, I can make that for you.
Thank you. I have 2 things. So the map that you have, can we get copies of that?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Can I pick one up on my way out tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's terrific. The second thing we wanted to let you guys know is that we have been contacted by Ironwood Renewables, Ironwood Energy, by letter and then by email to purchase our, the 70 acres over, we call it the North 70, but the 70 acres over, that we own next to the winery, for solar panels.
Okay.
So, and I'm happy to share the contents of that. I wrote them back a reply that if they come back to us, it's on terms that we're interested in continuing to talk to them about. They haven't come back to us, so I think it's at bay. But I just wanted the township to know that it was pretty
There's a number of them
aggressive.
that have been, there have been inquiries. The township's in the process, the planning commission is in the process of developing an ordinance to manage those. And we're not trying to overmanage it, we just don't want it to become a public nuisance.
Well,
So if you come to the planning commission meetings, you could hear that discussion.
It's actually happening, Brent's here, so you have 2 members right here, that they're actually working on it.
is that happening tonight?
No.
Oh.
No, the next planning commission meeting,
Well, I'm happy to share the stuff, but
you might want to come and listen to it.
they were pretty aggressive, they were aggressive, in
Have
the
you
first.
checked to see if it's allowable, the ag easement?
Did I check? I did not. No, we're not interested in pursuing it. I just thought.
Oh, you don't want to do it, okay, I thought
Yeah,
maybe
because you might have to check with.
No, we're not
your
even remotely interested.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting move of theirs with us in the township when we own close to to 100 acres in the
There was
township.
one proposed up on DeAndrews property, it was an 81-acre property on 841, just north of Hesper Road. It's got a really bad access driveway. But somebody just bought it. Got 5 kids, and built a house on 81 acres. So
Oh, that's one actually, yeah, I saw some of it.
yeah, so that one's off the table.
Well, I'll talk to you guys about it.
Yeah, these guys know what's going on.
Well, I was gonna say, that if they're pushing for that like soon, they might wanna wait for us to have an actual ordinance to.
I just didn't know if the two things were tied, because I'm reading about it in the township information, and then out of the blue, unsolicited, these guys came after us 3 times with offers, to purchase
You know,
us.
they're developers that are looking for opportunities.
Yeah,
So they're
okay.
just fishing around, so they might find somebody that wants to do it. The township's not opposed to it. You have a number of the small solar arrangements. I think we have 15 or 16 in the township and 1 wind turbine. Most of the solar ones are rooftop, but there are some mounted, ground mounted. I think 14 or 15, I think we have. And we had a potential permit for another wind turbine, but that never came out.
When I found out, I didn't know if you were at the planning commission meeting, and the doctors explained to us that the wind turbines do not produce electricity.
Oh, they don't, what do they do?
What did they,
Pump water,
pardon?
pump water.
No, it's,
No, I didn't hear that.
Mill grain, I mean.
no. I got it retrieved in the whole brain. What did they say, Paul?
Yeah.
I think I missed the
I
last.
think they said it was a deterrent for certain wildlife that would eat the grapes.
No,
Looks like a scarecrow.
no, but it does not produce electricity.
Oh, so they do produce electricity, but in
But
this particular
theirs,
case,
theirs do not
I'm
produce
sorry, I was
electricity.
gonna say, that's the whole point, but I got it
Yeah.
now, so like, this one is
So they're what,
different.
decorative or something?
No, they're not considered. I'll think of it.
Pumping water, you know,
No,
That's what the Amish do.
Hey, it
Oh,
won't-
these
the
are the
Amish
ones that
actually
use
pump
to
water.
blow air around so that the grapes don't freeze.
right,
Oh, okay.
yeah. maybe
Oh,
that-
so the gravestone freeze, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, when you look at these alternate energy systems, especially, let's just talk about the solar. The solar only produces energy when you have some sunlight or even on a cloudy day, get some power out of it, but I hate that when it happens. They don't produce power all the time. So their primary benefit is to produce power, but only at certain times. So when you look at the utility company, what the utility company has to do is they're required by law to buy power back. But they need to maintain capital facilities to provide the full load at any one time. Because the solar is not guaranteed, nor is the wind. So the primary benefit is it just displaces fuel, but it doesn't displace generating facilities and the capital costs to produce those and maintain them. So it's not a point that everybody understands.
I had a question, this is, we're on zoning, if you don't mind me asking. One of the reasons I came tonight was the line item that was actually crossed out about the light industrial district.
Right.
I'm wondering if that is the one that's across the street from my house, and I'm wondering what that result was.
No, it's down here on 896 south of Kimballsville.
The one across from your house is the power plant.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that there were too many light industrial districts in the township, so I just, when I saw that, I'm like, tell me you're not putting a wall
Yeah, I
on
think
it across
the
the
issue
street.
was that the property that owned it before Gary Johnson had a couple of workshops on there, and he's got some property. But somebody bought it, and the person wants to repair cars for profit and also live on the property, and the zoning didn't allow that.
Okay.
So there were 2 ways to resolve that issue if we wanted to. One is we could change the zoning, which is quite problematic. It would take 4 or 5 months to do that. Or he can go to the zoning hearing board and appeal the zoning and get a variance.
Sure.
And that's what he did.
Okay.
The advantage for the township is that when the zoning hearing board grants a variance like that, it's a one-time variance. It doesn't set a precedent, where if we change the zoning, then it will be allowed all over that district. So that's the difference between changing the zoning versus a variance from the zoning hearing board. They each have advantages in certain situations. This would resolve itself quickly for a new owner.
This is, like I said, this is for me just a very parochial interest about my own.
That's not you this time.
The only thing that changes in the property, I mean, Gary lived there all those years and he did repairs on all of his equipment and RVs, and now the guy's gonna do some repairs on cars for profit, so that's the only thing that changes. He's still gonna live there, just like Gary and his wife did years ago. So, anyway, I'm getting about talked out here.
Yeah. We're waiting for David, so.
So I don't think I can do the entertainment anymore tonight. Plus I think, if anybody got any questions.
I guess this guy Jason isn't showing up either.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, if he was here, he probably would have been here. He was right on the top of the agenda, so.
I'm sorry about the folks who came for him, but we can't force him to come.
Put your work and stuff, and it's up to you.
Pull stuff in?
Well, David said, he thought 8 o'clock, but maybe 8:30.
We can't wait another
I
5
don't know.
minutes.
The issue that he's got, David's a flight instructor for executive jet pilots over at Wilmington Airport, and he's giving somebody a check ride tonight, so. They moved the check ride from early in the afternoon to starting at 4 o'clock, so.
Maybe the closets.
Why don't we pull stuff on the phone and get going with some.
All right, let's try that.
We can't wait another 20 minutes, I'll hold on nuts, there's nothing to say.
No, I'm not out of stuff to talk about, unless somebody's got a good question, trigger something.
I mean, I can ask that. The other thing I was really curious about was your, the last line item about the email storage and your web server. I'm just,
Quick actually, we get the meeting going, we'll get into that. The software that we use right now on our server, client server, is no longer being supported by Microsoft. So we need to make a fundamental change in our software and the way we manage information here. This kind of dropped on us about 5 years ago, and our IT supplier at that point wanted us to go on the cloud at that point, which was really expensive. So we found a cheaper alternative. We were able to buy some software for about $4,000 that would run on our server and save a whole lot of money, but that expired.
is this just for email or is this for the web?
This is for all our records. It's for email, it's for all our file records, it's for the backup. You know, the files are backed up in various places.
So it's a storage, email, and web hosting?
Yeah, it covers all our IT needs.
Got it.
And there were 3 options there, and the option that the board eventually chose was the full cloud version, where we're fully inverted.
So Stefan's going to.
Okay, we finished this. We're going to be fully immersed in Microsoft's cloud, so that's what we decided to do.
You were at the last meeting, so you remember we had the 3 options?
Yeah, no, I was just curious if you were going with Azure.
Well, during the last meeting, there was a question about costs, and Joan provided a chart for everybody, and we all since looked at it and were satisfied with it, but we didn't vote on it, so we put it back on the agenda.
I guess my only question would be, did you consider, or were any of the other cloud platforms considered versus Azure? Because I mean, AWS is very competitive with Azure, and last I looked, they actually had even better pricing for governmental accounts. So I don't know if you're
We work with our supplier. We're happy with the IT supplier we have right now, and those prices were reasonable. Nancy Morris is extremely experienced. She was an IT manager for AstraZeneca, and she thought it was all right. So
I was just curious. That's all.
I've got to use the expertise I have. So.
Okay, I think we're good. John, where do we start from the beginning? So we'll go way
Yeah,
down.
no,
Can you hear
bring
us,
him,
Stefan?
bring him in, so it's in minutes.
All right, so Stefan is on board.
Jeff, put it in.
All right. Okay, very good. All right, so just for the tape, Stefan Torres has joined the meeting at 8:10. So Stefan, where we've worked the meeting as far as we could on agenda items that didn't require a vote. And then David's not here, so we thought we'd give you a call.
I can start it,
We
John.
talked to a number of residents here for a long time, but I ran out of
Yeah, we
things
get
to talk
bored.
about.
So,
Okay.
Let's see, let me find an agenda here. Too many pieces of paper here. Let me put some stuff away.
we can get you another copy first.
My agenda is here somewhere.
This needs I can start it for you. So we're gonna, Stefan, we're kind of starting from the beginning. So I'm gonna say, no, it's a motion. I'm gonna make a motion, that's okay. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the October 16, 2019 version 2 meeting minutes as presented by the Township Secretary.
Oh, here it is.
Could I have a second for that? John?
I second it.
Okay. And then,
Did John second that?
Yeah, I second it.
and then, so, any discussion for the Township minutes? I was fine with them, are you okay?
I'm okay with it. I read the minutes and have no upgrades or corrections.
Stefan, you okay?
Yeah, no, I already read them. I think they're fine.
Okay, sounds good. So let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's, the motion carries 3-0. Okay, so.
Yeah, I just want to make a note for the record that that Supervisor Torres's participation is permitted under Pennsylvania law. Even though he's not technically physically present in the room, as long as he can hear what the other individuals are saying that are in the room and he can participate in conversation, then there's no issue with him participating and voting on issues that the board may consider. So I just want to make that note.
Okay. Yeah, Stefan's in Cincinnati right now.
So you get
So let's see, the next item we have.
deposition.
Mr. Jackson, I think I missed about 70% of what Mark was saying. I assume he was just saying, to clarify that I'm not in the office, I'm remote, but participate in this way, and that is legally fine.
Right.
Yes, Stefan, with the issue being we can hear you, and as long as you can hear us, then, you're deemed to be, physically present in the room. So you can participate and as a quorum of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay,
Okay, yeah. I can hear John and Donna, but maybe some distance where you said, but I can hear John and Donna better.
all right, so we just need to articulate ourselves and speak a little slower here so that he can pick that up. Okay, so the next item is a resolution on the disposition of records. I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors adopt Resolution 2019-18 regarding the disposition of records for the Board of Supervisors meeting October 16th, 2019.
And I second that.
Seconded by Donna. Just for the record, this motion allows us to erase the previous audio tape because the minutes that were recorded on an audio tape have now been transcribed to written minutes approved by the board just a moment ago. So this allows us to erase that tape. We do retain the videotapes indefinitely, so that record is there. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
All right, motion carries 3-0.
Great. Okay, so I'll make the next one, Stefan, because I don't think you have anything in front of you. I make a motion that the board approve the October Treasurer's Report, which includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $177,170.09. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $9,783.44. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $6,553.17. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $39,197.70. And the Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $704,530.46. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, can we give that to Stefan?
Stefan got that second.
Because Stefan always does the budget. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? say
Aye.
nay. Aye. Okay, so that motion carries 3-0. Okay, so moving along.
Okay, so now we're down to the two ordinances.
Right.
Finally, Nancy, you get to do your thing. Sorry about all that delay. There are two ordinances that we need to adopt, and these are changing law. So, Mark, you usually start this thing off. So.
I do. This is the ordinance that's been advertised for consideration by the Board of Supervisors tonight is the ordinance. It's a brake retarder ordinance that adds an additional area to prohibit the use of engine retarding devices. Specifically, it's the section of road is State Road 3007 between the Maryland state line and State Road 0896-896. That is the addition to the Township Code. There are just three exhibits. The brake retarder ordinance itself, that's T1. T2 is the public notice that was placed in the Daily Local News. And T3, while we don't have what's called the proof of publication, that it ran in the Daily Local News, which we received from the newspaper, we actually just have a copy of the Daily Local News itself, indicating that that public notice ran in the newspaper. So those are the three exhibits. If the board has anything they'd like to add, certainly, and we can receive public comment on this ordinance.
Just a bit of an explanation to the public. And these devices that we're trying to restrict are engine braking devices that are used by diesel engines and large trucks. Essentially, they use engine compression to help slow the vehicle down, in addition to the mechanical brakes they have. But they're noisy. I'm sure you heard these diesels as they start to slow down, and they make a really loud reporting sound. And they're annoying in the village, so we have signs up to prohibit that as they come into the village. That's all I have. Any public comment on that?
I'd like to say thank you.
Okay. All right.
You can just state your name for the.
Oh, Paul Agassi. I live at 105 Walker Road in the village and also in the historic district, and I believe I was the one who initially raised this with the Board of Supervisors.
Stefan, any comments? You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Anybody else?
Oh, so we've taken, considering no public comment, why don't we close this hearing, and then the board is free to make a motion
Okay.
to act on the ordinance.
All right, I'll make that motion. And just reiterating, this is changing the law here. I make a motion, the Board of Supervisors enact ordinance 2019-02, restricting brake retarders on Appleton Road in the village.
I second that.
Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the Board of Public? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 3-0.
So now we do the next one.
Now we got another hearing. Mark will open on the next.
Well, no, I think this is an ordinance, this is an
Okay.
authorization to advertise.
So I'll
Oh,
take.
this is an authorization, okay, then just do that.
I'll take this
You're
one.
done.
So I hope that folks have gotten a chance to get to the park, because some great work has been done in the bathrooms. I'm very proud of our new bathrooms, so please come check them out. But we also, and I can't.
They're closed now for the winter.
I know, well, yeah, that's great, but they're beautiful, they're nicer than your own house, they're gorgeous. I just want to thank Jeff for all the work you've done, and he's also been involved with the, making sure that we have barbecues. And so, and our hunters have helped put them in. But guess what, the ordinance said that you couldn't have barbecues, so that's why we're here. We have to change the ordinance so people can actually use the barbecues. But like I said, Jeff, thank you so much for all your hard work, and thank you to the hunters for actually getting these things installed. So that, I just want to give you the background, but I'm very, very proud of what we've done at the park. And so I would like to make a motion that the Board of Supervisors authorize the solicitor advertise ordinance 2019-03, updating the park rules to allow barbecues and changing the park hours to sunrise to sunset for enactment at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
John, thank you, John. Any discussion?
Can I ask a real quick question, if you can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. I'm completely in favor for it, and the FFA did a great job, and Jeff and everybody. Looking forward to how the park is going to develop over the next couple of years. And while I may not be around supervisor, money to contribute as much as I can. The question I have is with regards to barbecues. What is the definition of a barbecue? Can somebody bring in their own hibachi and put it anywhere they want? Can you put a barbecue in the middle of an area next to a field or something? I just want to make sure that there's a town definition of a barbecue that doesn't create something that we wish we did, and then we should have something more definitive. And it's a weird question, but.
So I believe for the ordinance, we just took it out. We removed the wording that there were no barbecues, so it's, there aren't any additional restrictions, Stefan.
Well, I think what we'll do, if it becomes, if some nuisance develops as a result of the restriction, then we'll adjust the ordinance further, but I don't want to get more specific than we are right now, other than we've removed it. A lot of people do bring in grills and barbecues, and if they're used properly, I don't see a problem with them, but if it does become an issue, then we can restrict it.
But it's a good question. And we have the 6 now, so hopefully they'll make use of what's there. And
Somebody used one already, right?
Yes.
Somebody already used one, which is good.
All right, so I'll thank you for the discussion. Any other discussion, any public discussion or comments? Go ahead.
Brent Van Lith, I'm a resident in the township. You said that the other thing was to change the hours from sunrise to sunset?
Correct.
I thought that's what the hours were. What
No, I think they were like 8 o'clock in the morning. They were set. So it wasn't necessarily sunrise. It wasn't at 8, it was 8 a.m.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that.
So now we give people have more access. We better vote on what we can still, what's Kevin still with us. All right, so we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, good. Motion carries 3-0. John, you want to take the next one? For Chuck?
Let's see, for Chuck Phillips. I'm not the wrong one, 3-0. Okay. I'll make the motion and we can talk about it. Nancy, you don't have to stay any longer, so you won't hurt my feelings when you leave, so I appreciate you coming down and wading through all that, so thank you. I make a motion the Board of Supervisors appoint Chuck Phillips to the Historical Commission to a 5-year term expiring November 30th, 2025.
I second that.
Seconded by Donna. The Historic Commission does not have enough members to conduct a meeting, I believe. Is that the issue?
No, it's actually more complicated than that. The Historical Commission can have up to 9 members, I believe we have 6. And we have a large degree of overlap between the Historical Commission and the Historical Architectural Review Board, in part that it's not a high interest opportunity for a lot of people, so when I'm trying to live the risk of body, I do my best to lay my hands on that poor person. So occasionally it will happen because the membership is not identical. The ARB is actually a small specified membership. That we have now made joint meetings, ARB and Historical Commission, to reduce the amount of commitment overlap and discussion overlap. But we recently had a meeting where we had a HARB quorum, but not a Historical Commission quorum. And I had been, prior to that, shall we say, encouraging Chuck to consider joining the Historical Commission, since he already serves in the HARB. And I'm glad to see he's on the agenda tonight.
Yeah.
But it's a question of having a quorum in order to be able to conduct business, something you might not be unfamiliar with.
So
We've
Chuck-
had a meeting like this.
So
Actually,
two
we've had
things. Chuck graciously agreed to do this.
Yes, he did.
But secondly, he's entirely qualified. Chuck
Yes, he
Phillips
is.
is a township resident. He's an architect. He's got an architectural business. He lives over on Heather Hills, right along Chesterville Road. So he's lived here a long time. He's on the planning commission. He's a great contributor to the planning commission and highly knowledgeable in architectural affairs.
Yes, and he's already serving on the historical architectural review board. So he's,
From a qualification standpoint, you can't come up with a better qualified person. And secondly, he's volunteered to help out, so.
right. I mean, fundamentally what it means is that by increasing the number by one person in the historical commission, we increase the likelihood of having quorum without increasing the required quorum. So, and since he's already attending the meetings as a member of the Historical Architectural Review Board, and the meetings are joint, and he's eminently qualified.
It's a no-brainer.
It's really a no-brainer. It just requires him coming in and asking to be named to the board and having our supervisors do it. So please do it.
We've done a lot for you tonight.
All right.
Yes, you have. And I'm most grateful. Thank you very much.
Did you read the motion or did I read it?
I think you did.
All
Yeah,
right.
because I seconded it.
All right, so, all in favor, say aye.
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 Yay.
Motion carries 3-0.
Stefan's still with us.
So, okay, so, all right, we're down to two more items, and what I want to do is come back to the budget
Let's
last.
get the
But
computer.
this one, on the computer one, why don't you do that one next,
Yeah.
the last one, because it'll take 2 minutes to do it.
So I make a motion that the board replace the current computer computer server, what reaches the end of its life in January 2020, with a fully cloud-based option. Can I have a second for that? Thank you, Stefan. And, so we really put Joan through the ropes, making sure that we looked at every option, the cost, not only the year cost, but the 5-year cost. Actually, we even went beyond 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So I can speak for myself, and that I'm thoroughly convinced that the cloud option is the best option, and I totally support it.
Yeah, that was the question at the last meeting, we couldn't see the cost going all the way out, and now we can see it way beyond what we need to see, so, okay.
Stefan, you okay?
Oh, sure. No, we've gone through the spreadsheet and we talked about it, yeah.
All right.
So we'll have a vote, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 3-0. Yay,
All
Joe.
right, so we're down to,
Budget.
budget. All right. Restart this computer. I guess David hasn't landed yet, so that's.
I thought I heard a plane going over when, when Mark started, when Mark started the hearing, did you hear the plane?
He's flying. We have Stefan, we're fine. But I know, I can feel your pain, Paul, trying to conduct a meeting when you don't have enough people.
We had to have Blue Mandage join us over some once in order to conduct business.
This is
I
what you
understand
have.
what the issues are.
All right, so let's just get this
Good job.
budget discussion
Budget.
started.
Go start.
Let's see, I'll just tell you where I reviewed the budget. I had relatively few questions. I did clarify a few things today in the staff meeting, but they're not major items at all. I was pretty much satisfied with the budget as it was presented to us by Joan. It's very similar to last year. I would say that it is probably, it's not as much money available for road maintenance as there was last year. It's about $106,000 less available this year than last. And we'll probably get into why that is, but that's the one key item in the budget. We don't have anywhere near as much money as we had last year. Just looking at the summary page, going back to the front of the budget. Our budget is about 2.9 million, so we're not a very big township. And with the expenditures we have and having such a small budget, cannot make many mistakes here. Because if you overspend something without paying attention to it, you get yourself in trouble really quickly here. So many years ago, we instituted a cost control plan, which is built into our staff meetings. Essentially, the staff meeting, although we review projects, is a cost control meeting. Fundamental function areas. We sign checks, which just as an administrative function, because we're required to sign checks. But we do look at the work that's coming up, and we do review every staff meeting, the current status of the budget, how much disposable income we have, particularly on the infrastructure projects, how much is available from each category, and what the projection is for the use. So if something goes up, then you need to make some adjustments. So as long as you make the adjustments in a timely manner and you get to the end of the year, you're not in any trouble. So we cost control on a weekly basis. If you do it on a monthly basis, that's less desirable. So the system we have, we've had that in here, Joan, since what, 2013 or something like that. We started pretty early in the time when we got on the board. And that has provided not only good cost control, but control of the projects and also good communications with the staff. And we do that with rotating supervisors. We only have 2 supervisors at that meeting at a time because you can't have a quorum at that meeting. So we rotate supervisors in that meeting. Let's see. How do we go about reviewing this thing? I can just start at the back and tell you what I've determined. I did indicate that we, just as my own little tab sheet at the end of it, that we're $106,000 less than we had last year, John. The way I look at it, I'm looking at liquid fuels money, capital project money, and the impact fees east and west. And last year, those funds added up to $487,851, and this year it's only $381,700. Now, why is that? We talked about that in the staff meeting. The reason we had another probably 100,000 in liquid fuels because we were unable to finish Walker Road in the previous year. We ran into weather problems with Walker Road, and PennDOT was, because it was liquid fuels money, they typically don't allow you to pay it after October 15th. We had so much wet weather during the summer, we were unable to complete our road program because of the weather. They did give us an extension to November 1st or something like that, Jim? Yes. But that still didn't help us. So essentially, Walker Road rolled over from 2018 and 2019 last year. That's how we ended up with the extra money, and that's why there's a difference.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I was expecting to be tonight, so I would have my book with me, so I don't have it with me. But if we were to take 18 and 19 and add them together divide by 2 to take out any seasonality or weather nuances, would the 2020 budget
Yeah, it would be, because you're exactly right. Because you went, and I didn't go back and look at 18. Joan pointed that out to me this afternoon in the staff meeting. So, yeah, if you did what you just suggested, it would even out. Because liquid fuel money, we're getting about $209,000 a year. And then, of course, in 2019, we had $288,000 because of the carryover from not doing Walker Road.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
But liquid fuel money went down just a little bit this year, primarily because of, I guess people are driving less.
That's a good thing.
Buying gas less in Pennsylvania.
Buying less
Oh,
gas in
yeah, because
Pennsylvania.
Delaware. No offenses.
Okay, let's start to the back of it. The last tab is the reserve fund. And currently, the reserve fund has about $183,000 in it. And we're planning to add 49,000. Typically it's 45.
45,
Is it 45?
yes.
Okay, so we're gonna add 45,000. That takes us up to what, 232. Ultimately, the objective is to have about $250,000 in this reserve fund. When I first got on the board, there was no reserve fund, zero. And that was a very uncomfortable feeling for us, to not have any reserve at all. And every year we put about 45,000 in there. I think we missed one year in 2016 or something, but we're close to that goal. But the purpose of the reserve fund is for pure emergencies and possibly to manage a cash flow issue. One way we might use that reserve fund this year is with this Hess Mill Road Bridge. Typically, if we get grant money, we don't get the grant money until after we fix the bridge. So that means that we would have to front the money for the bridge. So the estimated cost now is about $275 to do this bridge. So if we get all that grant money, which would be good, we'd still have to put that money up ourselves. So we could take all the reserve fund and use that to just balance the cash flow. Take it out of the reserve fund, then when we get the grant money back, then we put it back in the reserve fund. So it solves this cash flow problem. That's not quite enough, so we need a little more, 232 to about another 40,000. Now, we might be able to work that out of the budget as a cash flow issue and not have to borrow any money. But there's always an option to take a short-term loan for a short period of time to cover that cash flow issue. And there's a bank that does that for us. So anyway, Joan, we did talk about that this week.
Yeah, it's Pennsylvania Infrastructure Bank.
Infrastructure bank, yeah, there's short-term loans up to 5 years or something like that. But we wouldn't go, we only have to do it for a short term. So that's how we would use the reserve fund. I don't think I've got anything on the fire hydrant fund, nothing changed very much there at all. We go on emergency services. We have reduced tax income in the emergency services fund from the real estate taxes. We're down, let's see, for this year we had 145,000, and now we're down to 141,000. We're somewhere around $3,500 down in income. And why is that? Because of reduced assessed values. Properties, people reassess their houses to a lower value and we're getting less tax money. So the way that we compensate for that in this particular fund is, all we do is, if we have to, we didn't have to do it, is increase the transfer from the general fund. Although there was enough, for lack of a better word, slush in this fund, cover that short $3,500. So, but we are losing income in real estate taxes, and you'll see that throughout the whole budget. Let's see, the highway fund is the liquid fuels money that we get from the state of Pennsylvania. State of Pennsylvania collects gas taxes, and some of that tax money comes back to the townships based on the number of miles of road we have. We have, what, 38 miles of road?
Just shy,
Just shy of 38 miles of road. Based on that mileage, they calculate that you're going to get a certain proportion of the total tax money they collected for the year. And for us, that turns out to be,
It's on 206,000.
where am I? Highway fund, should be 210,000.
206 is what we're gonna get.
200
6.
state allocation, oh yeah, 206, yeah, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong one. 206, 445, yeah. It was, last year it was 215, the previous year it was, read that number, 208.
208. So it's gonna be less.
So it's in around the same figure. And the state of Pennsylvania is very particular about how we spend that money. We have to use their procedures, we use their materials, all their approved procedures. And they audit us regularly. And if you misbehave, you have to give the money back. We ever do, that ever happen to us?
One time, because the engineers that we had overseeing our road program that year did not file the completion report.
Oh, that was Scott Allen and McCormick Taylor?
Yes.
You fired them, right?
Yes.
How much money did we lose?
Well, we didn't lose.
You didn't lose,
You have to put it back in, and then you
put
use
it
it
back in,
next
and you
year.
get it back next year.
Oh, okay.
But we were lucky enough that we had the money to put it back
Yeah,
in.
we were able to,
Wow.
all right. But anyway, that is heavily audited fund. If they'd managed their own finances as well as they wanted to, our capital fund, that's basically infrastructure money. And let's see. Why can't I read this thing here? We're allocating 163,000, right?
Yes.
Out of the capital fund. And that is, as I see it, that's up $1,700 from the previous year. For whatever reason, it's up, which is good. Then we come up to these two impact fee accounts. And these accounts are divided into two sections, east and west. And what these things are is when a developer comes in and develops something, he has to pay impact fees based on the value of his project. There's some formula that calculates his impact fee.
It's based on traffic trips.
Trips, right, but then he creates, right? Then he creates.
Yes.
Okay, so each project creates money, and our township's divided into two areas, east and west. And it accumulates money based on these projects, but you have to use the money in the area, within the geographic area of the east and west designation. There's very little money in these accounts now, because there's very little activity in our township. So.
This year, we had money in the East account because of the charter school. They had to pay approximately $40,000 in impact fees, so we used that to repair PCL Road.
Yeah, that was 38,000 or something like that.
That's what we used this year.
Yeah,
We used
yeah.
a little bit.
But for next year, there's
No,
very little.
it's gone now.
Very little. You got, let's see, income. In the west, it's like $1,400. In the east, we got $3,500, so they're small numbers. And that will be infrastructure money that can be used for infrastructure and roads in the designated areas. And we have open space fund. One thing I'll say about the open space fund, when you look at the bottom line in the budget, under ending cash balance for 2020, it shows $111,600 in there as a cash balance. But that's not necessarily a balance, because that money is in there because we have to pay the principal on the loan early in the year, in January. So the money has to be in the budget, because the budget starts year end to year, beginning of the year to end of the year. But payments due in January, so you have to have the money in the account at the end of the year, so you can pay it in January. So it looks like there's excess money in there. That money's already committed.
And I think the other point too, John, is that we have to take money from the general fund.
Well, that's another aspect of it.
That's just what we do.
We look at the, there are three major expenses in the open space fund. For the $3.5 million loan, there's an interest and principal payment. And just to give you the numbers, the interest is $76,000, and the principal payment is shows $93,000. And it's an odd loan. The interest rate's pretty good. It's like 2.78. It's not a real high rate, but it's got an unusual payment schedule. You end up paying the principal once a year and the interest every month. That's just the way it was structured. I mean, that's not a typical mortgage loan where you have a principal and interest payment made every month and a decreasing
And it keeps on going
principal.
up. It doesn't, it's not like it stays the same every month, it actually goes up in cost.
Anyway, that particular loan, the payoff date is somewhere in the middle of year 2040, so we'll never see the end of that thing. I still won't live to see it.
You got 20 more years in your job.
Let's see, there's one other major cost in the open space fund. That's for the Stolfus preservation, and that cost is $44,163 per year for 5 payments. So the first payment is due this year. So that's going to go on for 5 years. And that's only going to go to 19. It's only go to 2024, right? 2024, where the large loan goes to 2040. So to manage that, the income that comes into the fund, there's a dedicated real estate tax that goes into the open space fund. It's 20% of our real estate tax. It's 0.5 mils. We're like 2.49 mils for the total real estate tax, and 0.5 mils gives us an income of $141,000. So the tax money, the dedicated tax money that comes into that account falls short of covering the expenses, so we have to transfer $63,000 from the general fund into the open space fund to balance this account. Let's see here. And the park and rec fund, and I'm going to let Dawn talk about that one.
This goes back to
She manipulated it,
my
which is
barbecues
good.
and bathrooms, so, the good,
Incidentally, those bathrooms are great. I'll tell you.
they're beautiful.
No woman would go into this bathroom before, they were just awful.
So what we were able to do, because there was a bond for the park, and that's been paid off. And that allowed us to put money for the Stolfus easement, which John's already talked about. But it also freed up a little bit of money that we can actually put back into the park to do more improvements, because the park needs some stuff done to it. Like I said, we've done the bathrooms, we've done some work with the top lot, so it has a nice bed of mulch so the kids don't get hurt. We're working on hopefully tennis courts this year, but there's definitely things that we want to do. And so what I've asked Joan to do is to make sure that's clear here, that we have a line, it's called 473 Parkland Improvements, and we're able to hike that up to $15,000 for 2020. And then, of course, there's also a line for park maintenance, there's work that needs to be done for the baseball fields and just to keep the park looking good, and that's $39,000. So I'm happy to see that we were able to put some dedicated funds, as I said, $15,000 to do new stuff, to continue to improve the park. We've had a good start this year, and we want to take that into 2020. So happy. So Joe, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, this past year, the major improvements there were the tot lot, which is pretty expensive. What did we put in at, 15,000 or something like that?
More than that.
More than that. What did it actually come out to? Because we had to redo the underground drainage system underneath it, which I think
It's probably twice that much.
twice.
We had to get it right.
The mulch itself is $10,000. 12, 11 something, 12.
Mulch over time starts to disintegrate and gets really hard, and if the kids fall and hit that, it's not good. We didn't want to get to a point where it was a danger to anybody.
Well, then it's certified toxin-free too.
Yeah.
We don't, kids.
And there's an undergrade drainage system which we damaged when we dug it up. There's just no way to.
You could take the
There's
old.
no way to
mulch
get
out.
that mulch out of there without damaging the pipes, so we had to replace the pipes. So that was a big expense. The other expense were the bathrooms, which I think were the biggest improvement for everybody using.
They
the
were
park.
around 9.
Yeah, about 9,000, but that project turned out really well. Thanks to Jeff. Jeff did a great job of managing that. And Don and Joan and Sharon did a really good job of selecting the colors. I probably would have painted it battleship gray, but they came up with some really nice decorator colors.
And Stefan's been a big help trying to, I know the tennis courts are near your heart, Stefan, but also doing the plants and thinking about planning what we can do in that healing garden. You've been a big help there too.
Yeah, if I recall, I think for the next couple of years, I don't know the timing, but tennis courts will be up in the next couple of years. And if I recall that number, it's not, that might be around 17, to repair the cracks in the tennis courts, which requires a lot more work, taking down the fence and filling the cracks. And then also, we have some plans, they'll probably be next year for the healing garden to get that back to better conditions for the public.
Yeah, my position is that the tennis courts have a higher priority, but not everybody agrees.
And it is a new board next year, so we'll see.
But, I mean, I favor that would provide the biggest benefit to the most people, would be to fix the tennis courts rather than plants and put a border around the healing garden, but that's to be determined.
The good news is we're moving in the right direction, we're fixing
Yeah,
things.
what we ended up with, as Donna suggested, originally the township took out a $750,000 loan back in 2004 to buy the land for Crossing Park and to build the park. And that loan was paid off last year. So it freed up about $56,000 to $57,000 a year of income, of which we divided up two ways. We used $41,000 a year to buy the Stolfus open space preservation. And then the remaining amount we put into the park to do these capital improvements that we did this year, which is the top lot and the bathroom. So we'll continue to use that in the park to get the park where we want it. But I think if we get the tennis courts done and the healing garden done, I think at that point we're just down to maintenance then, maintaining what we have. The park's pretty nice. The park's a very nice facility. Jeff, you don't think, is there anything else down there that you look at doing? I don't
Well,
think
we
so.
have lots of ideas in this next major
The
thing.
next major issue.
And I think over the next couple of years, we need to think about replacing certain elements in the top lot.
New equipment for the kids.
Oh, the equipment, yeah. That equipment is not cheap either.
It is not, sir.
And it's something we can do a piece a year or whatever, just to keep that going.
All right, so then,
So that was, thank you, John, for that.
I didn't get into the general fund, but I don't think I have to. I went over the general fund picks up all the other stuff. Let's just see if I have any marks on the general fund that are of note here. I didn't put any notes in the note column, so although there's ups and downs, I didn't make any notable observations comparing this to last year.
You continue to see the taxes going down, and I don't blame people for trying to reassess their house. I've reassessed my own house, but
Yep.
it does impact us. It gets to be several tens to $20,000.
That trend will continue. That trend will continue into the foreseeable future. You can see that trend in some surrounding districts. Octorara School District and Oxford School District have experienced significant reductions in assessed value as a result of large capital loans taken by the school district. So we will see that situation develop here also. That's just my expectation, but everything I see around us says that's where it's going to go. So we will continue to lose assessed value. When we look at our overall budget, squeezes on it. We're starting to feel that there's not so much room to make choices now. Emergency services is growing about 6% a year. That's way over. Just to point it in reference, consumer price index for this year is about 1.9%. So that thing's growing 6% a year. This year, and I don't know whether it will continue, the cost of the ambulance service from West Grove Fire Company went up 23%. So I was at a meeting, fire company there back in October, and they're really well organized. The fire company really got their stuff together. They got an auditable budget. You can tell exactly what they're doing. Every cost is covered. So they've got a budget like we have, so you can look at everything that's being spent. And one guy, Gary, who manages the ambulance service, he went through his whole routine, very thorough review of his program, what he was spending money on, and he showed us this 23% increase. Finally, I says, Gary, I said, what group of cost items that you just reviewed really contributed to this 23%? He didn't hesitate. He says, call volume went way up. So whether it stays there or not, I don't know. Call volume went way up. This is not in Franklin, this is overall. This is the whole West Grove thing. Because the way we pay for that is the fire company comes up with the total cost for the ambulance service. And then the 7 municipalities that use West Grove Fire Company have developed a formula by municipal agreement that determines what our proportion of the total is. So when the whole thing goes up, we go up. There is a variable component in the formula. The formula is based on 3 components. We use assessed value, population of the township, and the number of calls that are used in the previous year. So when you look at the 3 components, the assessed value and the population are fixed, more or less fixed components, and then the service runs are the variable. And we introduced that variable 5 years ago. It took us a long time to develop that agreement amongst, because all the townships like Franklin and London Britain don't use as much of the service as others did. In fact, it was just based on assessed value at the time. So here you had Penn Township using 50% of the service, and we're subsidizing the thing. They're paying $30,000 in rent per year, In reality, their fair share is more like 100,000. So this formula eventually corrected that, and they eventually accepted the increase. So we now get the benefit of some variable component in the cost. Incidentally, I was going to do that, we don't have a whole board here. We're trying to develop the same formula for Metacounty Ford. And that's a much harder agreement to get because there's 18 municipalities in that, not 7. So we just had a meeting the other night and only 10 townships showed up. So anyway, we're working on it. I think we're going to get it. But anyway, but that's the one cost that will really impact the budget as we go on. The other is MS4. We really still don't know what MS4 is going to cost us. Our permit, we put in our permit and we're going to propose to plant a whole lot of trees, which is the least expensive way to resolve it, but they haven't accepted our permit yet. Over the years, they have constantly changed the rules and moved the goalposts on us. So what we're going to spend, don't know.
To make it harder, not easier. They get upset when it's too easy.
To put it in perspective, this is about 3 years ago, LTL made an assessment of MS4 costs for us, and they estimated it $2 million over 10 years. That's $200,000 a year for MS4.
We don't have that.
You don't find many $200,000 numbers in our budget. Hopefully that isn't what develops, but it does give you some indication of what it could be.
Yes.
Is there something in the budget next year for the MS4?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we do, but we don't know what they're gonna approve.
What do you normally put aside, 100,000?
No, I think it's,
I know it's significant.
yeah. 150.
Okay.
But that includes taking care of their stormwater facilities.
All the
in
inlets and
town.
all stuff,
Yeah, it's not just MS4, it's also inlet repairs.
Now that's
Anything to
likely,
do with water.
now the area, MS4 covers the populated areas. And that's not the whole township, it only covers the areas that have been designated as over a certain population density. But when the next census comes in, which is 2020, and that data comes out probably the following year, the township will expand. I think our MS4 area will expand, and that'll add to our costs, because then we'll need to pick up more. So that's where we are. Whether we have anything else.
As you say, it's a tight, there's not a lot of extra here, and we try to make sure we use your money very carefully and account for every dollar.
Yep.
I don't have any additional comments, June. I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
Stefan, you're always good with the budget. Do you have any comments?
No, I agree with everything. We found about it a couple days ago, and I went to go to a couple weeks ago as well. Obviously, it's getting tighter. Hopefully, with the MS4, and if we do the trees, we can get 12-50% maybe from Shane Morgan's group. We'll get anywhere and everywhere to find money for the next board to help out with some of these costs that can help. They can give us some money as well, conservation districts and other things. But yeah, some of these big things that John talked about. One thing I don't know if you mentioned, I didn't hear it, was the always threat of a police force.
That's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another thing hanging out there. This idea has been tried for many, many years, where the state of Pennsylvania is proposing to charge the townships for police service. In reality, the way most townships look at it, and the way I look at it, is that historically, the state has always paid for state police service for rural areas. So their objective is just to move some of their costs down to the townships, dump it on us. It could cost us, we looked at it, wasn't it, Joan, about 150,000?
Yes.
Looking at the per capita rate they added, that's an enormous cost for us, so hopefully that doesn't happen. It's just, the state is in serious financial trouble, as is the county. State worse so. The state really is deficit spending, not technically deficit spending, but the way they borrow money, it is deficit spending. They typically take large loans, and a loan payment schedule provides low loan payments for the first 5 years, and then they escalate quickly, and then many of them have enormous balloon payments at the end of the loan. So, at some point, that's all it's gonna all come due, and there's a lot of that going on there. I talked to John Lawrence about it, there's a lot of it, and he's been unable to oppose a lot of it.
Well, he opposes it, but he can't.
He can't have enough support. Enough support. The county, incidentally, the county just made some proclamations today. Let's see, their controller, let me see, there was one interesting thing she said. I'll read it. I remember the beginning of the article. Jefferson County Controller has issued a warning that the amount of long-term debt in the county's operating budget has grown uncomfortably large over the past 15 years. It's having an impact not only on the county's ability to provide services, but also may affect its tax rates in coming years. And there's a long article, it's in today's? Yeah, it's today's. But there's one point in here she made. Let's see where it started. It also continues to fund the popular open space preservation, which grants tax dollars to certified projects that could save land from being gobbled up by development. Most recently, the commissioners announced that the county had planned to give $5 million to West Bradford to help in its acquisition efforts for the former Embryoville State Hospital grounds. While Reef suggested that, this is the controller, Reef suggested that she had no opposition to either of these efforts, a discussion on the amount of debt could have been made and still accommodated them. I can appreciate open space preservation, the controller said, but the goal has always been to save 30% of the county's acreage, and we are now at 29%. She argued that the county should continue to invest in open space without additional large borrowing. Just interpreting that says that they're not going to put much money into it because they're approaching their goal. So the county has always been pretty active with open space funds, but that's not a good sign. What else in the budget?
They already put the $5 tax on registration for the cars, right?
Look, the state's going to have, the state's in serious trouble. So somewhere along the line, some big taxes are coming down on us from the state of Pennsylvania. Where and how that develops, I don't know, but it's coming at us. All right.
But we have a good budget.
Any comments?
I don't want to depress everybody, we're doing all right. Hanging in there.
Actually, we've done a good budget. We're well organized. We don't, if you look at some of these, I was in that Medic 94 meeting with 10 townships the other day, and London, Britain was in there just poor mouth at it all over the place. They don't pay their fair share and can't. On Medic 94.
Do you want to make a motion, John, or what do you do?
Oh, we're at the end of the meeting. We have any public comment?
No, you
I'm
need
going
to
to
make
put the
a
motion, we're going to
motion.
accept the budget, just been waiting for us to accept the budget.
All right. Let's see.
Well, for you to advertise, right?
I make a motion. The Board of that the board authorize the staff to advertise the 2020 budget for adoption at the December 18, 2019 board meeting.
Seconded by Stefan?
Sure. Yeah.
Stefan,
He
he's
does
our,
all budgets.
he's our money guy. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Sorry.
All right,
I think
Approved.
today.
3-0, we have it.
all right, so that does it, right?
Yeah.
Miss any items here?
Nope, we're gonna do the
Can
letter.
I make a real quick,
The letter?
I, we
I
can't
just
do
want to commend John for
the letter regarding fair share.
Oh, we did that. That was the whole thing on,
I thought you
just
told,
a,
give a.
I appreciate the
oh,
comments.
the letter. Did you want to do the letter? Just get,
You talked about it, but you didn't vote on it, Shelley.
remember the letter that you wanted to send to Custer County about fair share?
I want to do it next month.
You're gonna wait till
I want
everybody's
the
in?
whole board here.
Okay.
I want the whole board here.
Yeah, it's not, we want to get it done, it's just, it's not critical that it
I
gets
don't
done.
want to leave it lay, I don't want that determination to lay out there for long, but I want the whole board to be involved in it. So,
Stefan, did you have something you wanted to say?
The only thing I think John caught it, but the only thing I wanted to say, I just wanted to compliment John for a good 2020 budget, and keeping us in check here. He does a great job, so thank you, John.
Here, here, we agree. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. All right, so
Motion
we're,
carries 3-0.
meeting adjourned at 9:12.
Thanks for your patience, guys, I really appreciate it, we're just doing the best we